we've got a legend here who is about to join us. I wanted to read something and then I'll pass it on to you real quick, Cozy, to introduce him, right? When I think about Dr. Brian Hooker, I think about a hero. And a hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. This definition emphasizes the heroism lies not in perfection or superhuman abilities, but in the courage to act despite fear. The essence of a hero is often found in the commitment to something greater than themselves, whether it's a cause, a principle, or the well being of others. As Joseph Campbell stated, a hero is someone who has given his or her life to something greater than oneself. Cozy?
Yes. Just want to introduce Dr. Brian Hooker, the PhD, is a bioengineer, biologist, and vaccine safety researcher with over 75 peer reviewed publications and 5 patents. After his son's autism diagnosis in 2001, he dedicated himself to uncovering the truth about vaccine risks. In 2014, Hooker played a pivotal role in exposing the CDC whistleblower scandal when senior scientist Dr. William Thompson contacted him and he revealed that the agency had allegedly concealed data showing a significant MMR autism link in African American boys in his landmark 2004 study. Uh, Dr. Hooker re, uh, Dr. Hooker's reanalysis of the data published in 2014 helped blow the lid off what many now call one of the biggest public health cover-ups in history. I am glad to introduce Dr. Brian Hooker. What's going on?
Well, it is so great to be here with you. I'm so sorry I got messed up on the times. I'm not in my normal time zone. I'm in central time. I'm in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa, literally in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa. It's probably GM corn, so I've been sprayed with glyphosate probably already
Oh
today.
no.
No, 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 no. I would have to take like a shower before I go in my house when I get home tomorrow, to get the glyphosate off. But um, no, I for some reason I spaced and I thought that it was starting at 9 p.m. Central Time, and then I thought about like, well, why would they start a show at 10? You New Yorkers though, you never sleep, so I, but I do apologize for getting that
No, no
messed up.
worries. You came just at the right time, actually, so
Oh,
it all
good, good,
worked out.
good.
Um, yeah, so the reason I have you on here is because the CDC finally updated their website, and it was very interesting to see. Maybe a special kind of hand had its helping, but now they had to say the statement "vaccines do not cause autism" is not based on science. Can you
Right.
tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the the CDC's website historically has said, probably for the past 15 years, that vaccines don't cause autism. And it's grinded against me, in light of the CDC whistleblower, in light of the whole cover up regarding thimerosal containing vaccines, regarding the MMR vaccine, that they would say such a preposterous thing, because we know that is absolutely not true. That the vast majority of the vaccination schedule has never been really evaluated for autism prevalence, and that even the things that the CDC has studied, one vaccine, the MMR, and one vaccine component, thimerosal, they have produced these fraudulent, preposterous studies, showing that mercury was actually protective against neurodevelopmental disorders. And so it is high time. I am so glad that Secretary Kennedy did this, that he rolled this out in such perfect timing, and really signaled to the world that they're not going to leave anything on the table. There are no taboo subjects when it comes to providing the best health for our children, and they're going to get to the bottom of the autism epidemic. And I will be glad, I'm 62 years old, if the autism epidemic is over and autism becomes a thing of the past by the time I'm worm food. That would be just perfect.
Yeah, and I'm so excited, but at the same time, I'm watching the headlines, right, of people kicking and screaming, saying
Hmm.
that Kennedy is causing a problem. This is going to bring back, vaccine preventable diseases, and um, it's almost like we live in two separate realities, right? There's
Right.
people who really look at the science and understand it, and there's people who read headlines and believe whatever their favorite politician is saying, what their favorite media is saying, and they just shut off their brain and say, "No, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, you're dangerous." How do we deal with a society like this where people have their own truths, quote unquote truths, and they're not willing to listen? How do we deal with this?
We at Children's Health Defense, we focus on the movable middle. That if somebody will, we can have a conversation with that individual and we can show them exactly what the science says and exactly what the science doesn't say, then we're going to focus on that conversation. Those people that live by bumper stickers and sound bites, well, God bless them. I mean, if that's the way that you want to live your life, then you're not going to have a very, very fulfilling, productive life if you are swayed by that type of just nonsense rhetoric. Then you kind of have to shake the dust off of your feet and just say, I'm sorry you feel that way. If you look at the actual science, it says something very, very different. But I don't know, honestly, Cozy, how you help a Bill Cassidy when they're just going to sit there and spout the same lies over and over and over again. And then you show them the truth and they shut their eyes.
Okay, and then one thing I want to say, then I'll pass it on to Rosangel or Mark to see if they have any questions for you. But what kind of studies do you think would be the most powerful to show them to where they cannot, like somebody like Bill Cassidy or somebody who's criticizing Robert Kennedy Jr. What would shut them up? What would tell them, all right, you know what, the show's over. You're right. Vaccines cause autism. What would prove it to them?
It's very difficult to somebody that does not want to believe because they're motivated financially not to believe. It's very difficult to figure out what study would lean them over that precipice so they could actually say, okay, I get it. Vaccines do cause autism. There is a causal link or relationship between vaccines and autism. And I think, that study, to me, has already been done. Anthony Mawson in 2017 released his first study regarding vaccinated versus unvaccinated children. He looked at the incidence of autism in vaccinated children. These were partially, he couldn't find a cohort of fully vaccinated children that would participate with him. So these were children that got about maybe 8 needle sticks in their first year of life, which is about a third of what the vaccine schedule is. But yet they were 5 times as likely to get an autism diagnosis. And so that's the study is the gold standard would be the placebo control or the unvaccinated individual, and then the fully vaccinated individual. And I would dare say that when you look at those children that are fully vaccinated, probably the autism incidences are probably 10, 12 times higher.
How's it going, Dr. Hooker? Thank you for joining us again. I remember we had the pleasure of interviewing you on X last time. It's good
Well,
to
thank
see
you
your
so much.
face this time. I'm on Central Time Zone as well in Texas as a trucker. I know the feeling of always wondering time zones and calculating it for New York to make sure that I'm on time. But the thing I notice is anytime I have an argument with somebody, they always say that you're not a doctor. And you go and you point to somebody like you and the research and things of that nature, but they don't want to look at it.
No,
They're just brainwashed to what they believe. And I think the biggest activists, I remember Rob Schneider and Jim Carrey many years ago having the courage to go and do that and have their careers somewhat ruined. When it comes to doctors, it's kind of the same thing. If you go and you speak out, you're kind of blacklisted because it's a cash cow. That's what people
right?
don't like. There's follow the money. There's the there you're forcing children to take it, so it's a guaranteed sale. It's not something that you have to resell every year. You're forcing kids to take an enormous amount of vaccines. So I believe I've asked you this question before, but for the new viewers, what inspired you to have the courage to go, knowing that it's going to affect your career, to go out and put these studies out there and to, fight the way you've been fighting?
Well, I've been very fortunate. When you're a PhD and not an MD, then I don't have a license that can be taken away. They can't take away my PhD. The institution that awarded my PhD has made it clear they don't rescind PhDs. I could be a serial felon. I would still be a doctor. I'd still be Dr. Brian Hooker. And then later in my career, when I started at Simpson University, where I retired before I started working for Children's Health Defense, they made it clear that academic freedom was premium. And so, and they didn't have so much to lose. I mean, we're not a big research institution. We're primarily an undergraduate school that is tuition driven. And so very, very few people are even going to notice, that are applying to come to school at Simpson University that, oh, there's a quote unquote anti-vaxxer among the ranks, unless, somebody chose to really publicize that, where people have tried. But so I have had less to lose than like a Dr. Andrew Wakefield or a Dr. Peter McCullough or a Pierre Corey or Dr. Mark Geyer. But you can't, when you see this, it's like seeing the most horrific auto accident that you could ever imagine in your life. You can't unsee it. You can't unsee the damage that massive vaccination has done to American society and really done to society worldwide. And so, I've always felt like, um, God's chosen us for this particular time, for this particular truth, and the the society really depends on us speaking out, really being able to say that particular truth. And I've, my son is he's nonverbal, but he spells to communicate. He's a speller. And so we ask him all the time, do you want me to continue to do this or do you want me to stop? And his answer is always, no, I want you to continue. I want you to help other kids like me, other kids, so they can prevent having, a lifetime of vaccine injury. And so he is the motivation. I mean, he is clearly is the motivation. He's experienced, he's suffered more pain, and so, as long as he says to keep going, then I keep going.
Now, I noticed that people within the anti-vaxxer community, the ones that are the most active are the ones who have actually felt, a side effect themselves, or
Mm.
have experienced it with their children. So I guess the message I would send to people is, don't wait for that to happen to you. When you see it happen to somebody else, you're still not getting. I don't get why people don't get the picture in their heads. Like, okay, this happens to somebody. It's not as rare as you think it is. There's the VAERS website. There's all this information out there. Don't let it happen to you or your son. And I don't mean to. I've never plugged the movie that I did before, but I used to act, and it's on Amazon Prime. This film called The Needs. It's for parents with special needs children, but there's a scene in there where the parents are talking like he's not the same person since he took the vaccine, and like talking about their kid, like, and this is a
Right.
story that I've heard plenty of times where it's, they're just not the same. They get the vaccine, then you see the kid doesn't smile as much anymore, is just not the same child. And it's like, how could that not be eye-opening to people? And I guess I'll move on to a question here. All the peer-reviewed studies Kozi mentioned, 75 of them, where can people find this to research and to share to people who aren't waking up, where they could read it for themselves?
Well, the best place to check out my publications is to go to children'shealthdefense.org, go to the science tab, it's a pull down tab, and then go to publications. And so that will bring up primarily the vax unvax studies that Children's Health Defense has done, and also the earlier vax unvax studies that I did with Neil Miller in 2020 and 2021. And so that's a really good resource. You can always email me directly at drbrianhooker@gmail.com. drbrianhooker@gmail.com, Brian with an I. And I will get, if you describe a particular study you want to see, I will get it to you. If you just want to see my studies in general, then I can get you a list of hyperlinks with those as well.
Oh, doc.
Rose Angel.
I guess
Yes.
we talked about a touchy subject, so we had some unexperienced technical difficulties there.
It always happens, doesn't it?
Always does. Dr. Brian, something that I wanted to ask you is because you mentioned God. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
how has your faith played a role in withstanding all of this, all of the hardship, just and that as a parent, as witnessing your son and his struggle throughout all of his life, and then at the same time being facing a mainstream weaponized society, right? The ends of the ends saying, no, you're wrong. This is not true. Like, it's almost insanity.
Right. It really, it's the world gone upside down. And the when you see something that leads to sickness and death, then you know that it's not of God. Okay? Because even in the New Testament, Jesus said, I've come to give you life and give you life more abundantly. And so I know that it's not because of my sin, it's not because of my son's sin that he is suffering. He's suffering at the hands of others that have put this on him, and that God's best for him is not that he be left in the situation that he was in when he first got vaccine injured. And so seeing that as my motivation, then it's really easy to get up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to do this, going to do this again, I'm going to do this for another day, and let's see how many lives we can save. Let's see how many children, healthy children, that we can create today because their parents decide that they're going to vote with their feet, that they're not going to embrace mainstream medicine, that they're not going to embrace massive vaccination, and they're going to take a different road. You know, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. Our immune systems are perfect. But yet when you listen to the medical establishment, it's like we need all these crutches under our arms, under our legs, in our arms, in our legs, that will, shore up the immune system. Well, the immune system wasn't broken in the first place. Why do we have to fix it over and over and over again with really a medical parlor trick that has been around since the late 1700s? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And so, if I really believe that God should firmly be in the driver's seat, then God should firmly be in the driver's seat with my health, with my wife's health, with my son's health, with the rest of my family's health. And I need to not only say it, but I also need to live it.
Thank you so much. Another question that I have for you, well, before I ask that question, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Children's Health Defense.org and all of the incredible work. All of you are so instrumental in your work and leading the way, and in your messaging too, because as mainstream, let's say for example, attacks Kennedy or someone around his team or something that you guys are putting out, Children's Health Defense is very quick on messaging right away to correct any of the things that may be misleading. My question to you, Dr. Brian, is what are some stories in the more recent times uh, of of maybe testimonials of people that maybe you like to share that have made an impact? I'll share one real quick.
Sure.
The story that you guys shared, Children's Health Defense, about twin little girls getting the shot and then not living shortly after that was really like it went viral, and that's it woke up a lot of people like what. And so are there more stories like that that you'd want to share? Because sometimes when we share these things, people start like they 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 hear the story and they connect more with it than if they're just hearing statistics and they don't see or hear who the person is or people are behind it.
Well, there's one person I want to highlight, and she is a personal hero of mine. Her name's Alexis Lorenz. Alexis received 3 vaccines that she didn't need to get. She's a young adult girl, and I believe that she received the vaccines when she was in her very early 20s, if not even had turned 21 when she received. But she had to receive. She has a genetic bleeding disorder that causes, I believe, if I get this right, that she can become fairly anemic very, very quickly. And in order to deal with that anemia, she was supposed to get a biologic. Now, to get that biologic, they had to make sure, and the hospital ordered that she get the Haemophilus influenza B shot, and then 2 different types of the meningococcal pneumonia vaccines. And she ended up getting the first shot, and the hospital insisted, even though this girl had a congenital bleeding disorder, the hospital insisted, you must get vaccinated. You must get this vaccine in order to get this therapy. And she was getting lightheaded, and she needed this therapy very desperately. So she finally acquiesced and said, "Okay, I'll go ahead and go ahead and get these vaccines." She got the first shot. And then she went into anaphylaxis. Her tongue and her throat started getting itchy, like they were closing up. And then she got the second 2, the meningococcal vaccines, all in one sitting, and she started bleeding out under her skin. And so she developed an acute condition called thrombocytopenia purpura, and it causes you to basically bleed out of your vessels, your capillaries, your arteries. And so all of a sudden she was developed this bruising all over her face, all over her head, and she went into some type like a bleeding shock because of the massive blood loss, and was in tremendous pain. She was screaming in pain. She was in a hospital, I believe, in the Los Angeles area, and her life will never be the same. I mean, she basically was completely debilitated by this thrombocytopenia purpura, and she still goes into these bleeding episodes all the time. She had to have massive skin grafts all over her scalp, the back of her scalp, the back of her neck, on her back, um, and have donor sites, skin graft donor sites, harvested from her thighs and buttocks. And she spent the next 9 months in the hospital. She never left the hospital, and she was one that she was telling people about this from her bedside. I mean, she was blogging about it. She was doing a live video with Nurse Angela Woolbrecht, and then also Steve Kirsch were giving updates of little Alexis, and her life. She was disfigured by this condition, by her vaccine injury, and the hospital did nothing to help her, and has never acknowledged the fact that she was going into anaphylaxis and she should have never gotten the next 2 shots.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we have some great comments here that I want to read to you, Dr. Brian. This one gentleman here by the name of Robert Shout out to Robert from the Bronx, Robert White. He says, Dr. Hooker makes me feel like I need to do more out there. And he sent you a heart. So that's amazing. You just inspired this gentleman right here. Listen, Dr. Hooker, we love you so much that, the fact that you spoke out and what you did was instrumental. For those of you who don't know who Dr. Brian is, he was instrumental in blowing the lid right off of this autism cover up that the
Right.
CDC was doing. So I'll just briefly say, most people probably do know, but just for those who don't, he recorded a conversation that he was having with Dr. William Thompson of the CDC, where he admitted to Dr. Brian that they were covering it up, and it showed an alarming increase in autism, specifically in African American boys who got vaccinated before the age of 2, right?
Right.
Before the age of 2. So when I saw that, I was already, understanding that vaccines were causing injuries. Uh, I was in it for a few years, just like understanding it and pushing back and spreading information. But when that came, I was like, that's what we needed. That was the missing piece to get that out. So you gave me so much inspiration when you did that, and it just fueled this amazing energy in me where I just was out there going even harder and harder. So I thank you for doing that, man. You unleashed the beast in me, and I was like, you know what, we're coming after you guys, and spreading the information. And what you said is key. We have to move with God's power. We have to, the fact that you have your son there, right? Pretty much you're fighting for you. You're a hero to your son, and you're a hero to every autistic kid out there in the world. So we all need to be those heroes. And I think we're coming close. I think that
Hmm.
we've come a long way. Just before you got on, I was saying, like, I was speaking to a crowd of 5 to 6 people in Union Square. And then within a year, I was talking to 20,000 people
Right.
out in the streets of Times Square. So we unified. And and the reason this happened is because pharma got too greedy. They wanted to, when COVID came, that was the peak of their greed. They're like, we're locking the whole world up. You're gonna do what we say. You're not gonna travel. You're not gonna eat. You're not gonna go into the supermarket. You're not gonna eat at a restaurant. And we were like, you know what? Screw this. And it wasn't a lot of people doing it, but the small percent that did, specifically in New York,
Right.
we were a minority, but the passion and the power and the bravery, the courage was unmatched. And this is how I met Rose Angel and Mark for NY and a whole bunch of you guys in New York. And that backlash was heard around the world, right? So now we have somebody in HHS that resulted in Robert Kennedy Jr. in HHS now telling the CDC, back off those fake science claims.
Right.
You cannot say that anymore. This is where we're at, people.
Exactly. And I my hat's off so much to the people in New York City that resisted the mandates, because so many of you paid with your livelihoods, you paid with your jobs, you paid with being shut in your house, not being able to go anywhere, the vaccine passports, the certificates, people that even had valid medical exemptions that couldn't even go to frickin' Carnegie Hall to see a concert, and basically had to leave even if they had a valid medical exemption. I heard so many stories about that, where your movement within the city was restricted, and it was like, it was like Soviet Russia. It wasn't the United States that we know and love and grew up in and had freedoms and had freedom of the press, free speech, free movement, freedom of assembly, First Amendment rights. It was so different. And so, Cozy, Rosangel, Mark, my hats off to you, because you were on the front lines really fighting this.
Well, people like you paved the way. Um, what I'd like to ask you, Dr. Brian, is about the remnants of 2020 that we're still experiencing today. Of course, this is such a big subject, but my focus in particular is what continues to happen in the hospital. For example, right? Like, um, like with my own mom, right?
Hmm.
She, by her own account, she's never taken the COVID jab, right? to
Right.
her knowledge. But in she has cancer. I'm telling everyone, stage 4. So in the last few years, we've been in and out of the hospital. She had a couple of months that she did, and when I look now at her records, unless it's a mistaken identity, it says that she's gotten the vaccine. Now, here's what's tricky about it. I've heard many people tell people that I know that they've had similar situations where they go into the hospital and their loved one is tricked or doesn't know that they've gotten these, or they have to get vaccines, or they get pressured to get vaccines in order to even qualify to get into a procedure. And so even though, quote unquote, 2020, the lockdown season is over, we are still seeing remnants of these dark days operating in the hospital system. If you can shed a little light on that. You know Something also that comes up is, you know what if you need a transfusion,
Right.
for example?
Right. Well, I would say that if you or a loved one has to be in the hospital, you need to have somebody who is awake there the entire time with that individual, that has visitation rights through the day and through the night. Do whatever you can to possibly do that, because yes, they will vaccinate while you were under. I've heard it over and over and over again, where and I worried about it myself. In February of 2021, I had open heart surgery during the middle of COVID, and I was fortunate because I was just under the age profile of where they were releasing the shot. So I'm pretty sure I didn't get vaccinated. I've been tested. I don't produce spike. And so I'm pretty sure that I didn't get the shot in that visit. But I also know that my son had to have a kidney stone lasered while he during COVID, and he was in the hospital, and my wife did not leave his side the entire time. I mean, she did not sleep for like 3 days, and finally, an OR suite opened up, and he was able to get the kidney stone taken care of. But you do not want to be alone in the hospital. We saw during the measles outbreak in West Texas that the girls that both quote unquote died of the measles got significantly worse when their parents were away from the room. They were significantly worse, and there a couple of times they sent the parents home or said, go back to your hotel. We don't want you to stay here in ICU. So you have no idea what they did, but those girls dying, quote unquote, of the measles fit the mainstream narrative that measles was a deadly disease. Measles is not deadly. I'm sorry, that's absolutely wrong. Both girls died of bacterial and pneumonia, the bacterial infections that were secondary to the measles, and that both girls actually were recovering from the measles when they caught the secondary bacterial pneumonia. And so these hospital protocols are really, really very, very insidious. The hospitals, they get the same amount of money whether you live or die. And as they were putting, especially during COVID, as they were putting people in the ICU and on mechanical ventilation, and the patients were progressing and getting worse and worse and worse, the hospitals were getting more money. So in some instances, we saw a delay to treatment of these individuals that got COVID, especially if they were unvaccinated, because unvaccinated deserve all the bad things, bad infectious disease boogeymans that come their way. So why not put them on the chopping block? And then the last issue that you raised is blood. You want to go to True Blood. I think it's trueblood.org or .com, and you can arrange to get a transfusion from somebody who is unvaccinated. So it's difficult to do, but it's very, very much worthwhile. You do not want mRNA, which will persist and can persist in the bloodstream, turning you into a spike protein production factory.
I have two more questions, and I know I'll pass it on to the gents. Uh, along this line, I've also heard stories. In fact, I was listening to a story, a great interview, guys. If you listen to Redacted, go check it out today. He had someone who was talking about how parents have gotten their children taken away for not having their kids up to date with vaccines by CPS. And then when that happens, it can become a nightmare to get the children back. So,
Right.
you know, this is what I mean, remnants of those days. A lot of people think that it's over and it's okay, but then when you get caught up in having to have some sort of service or wellness check, or even something as simple as my child is not updated, uh, that can be the pathway to a doctor writing a little note, and all of a sudden you get a little CPS, supposedly, as what I hear, knock on your door. Do you
Mm.
have you heard of any stories like that?
Absolutely. No, it's important to know your rights, and it's important to, whenever somebody shows up on your doorstep, and because you haven't vaccinated your child or because you're medically not compliant. We hear of cases where um, kids are getting better from cancer, but they still have additional rounds of chemo that just make them more sick. The parents refuse the rounds of chemo. The hospital calls CPS. And what I would suggest is that if anybody shows up on your doorstep unwelcome, they are trespassing on your property, on your house. Let them know. Get them away from your house. Do not open the door. Do not let them in. And if for some reason then the door does get open, then catch everything that you can on camera. Get every single moment of that interaction on camera so they know that they are being recorded for posterity, and that whatever it is that if you can get good legal representation right away to get CPS off your back. But there is no standard that would say, if you refuse vaccinations for your child, you're not a neglectful parent, you're a good parent. And there is no law statute in any state that I know of where it's illegal to have an unvaccinated child.
That's right. And then recently, I think it was a couple of years ago, we won a case. There was a law changed in New York saying that CPS cannot be called CPS. I mean, not vaccinating your kid is not a call for
Right.
CPS to come get your kid. So that's thankfully that's in the book. So those who don't know, that is law. The law protects you. You do not have to, like Dr. Brian said, do not open the door to these people.
No,
Um,
no,
I want to talk a
there's
little bit
a reason.
about the
Wait, I have one more question.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Because we were talking about mRNA and food.
Yeah.
Like they're saying they want to try to put mRNA, or they're doing it in like salads and this and that. And I have to say, it could be related or non-related, but I'm even questioning things that I get in certain organic places. I'm like, is this really food, or is this been mass produced at a 3D printer? I'm not saying anything, but I'm a little bit concerned about the mRNA. If you could shed some light about it.
Well, the thing about any type of foreign DNA product that enters into your digestive system is that chances are that it can end up transforming your gut bacteria. So if you and it's shown low level gene transfer from plants that are genetically modified, that the residues end up in your gut. The transgenes that produce like Bt toxin or produce resistance to Roundup um, will transfer to the child or the adult's gut bacteria, and then they'll actively produce from their gut bacteria that genetically modified compound. So it's very, very important that you do not consume GM food, that you look for the non-GMO certified label. And that is a kind of a happy coincidence. I was working with a researcher that came up with that label and came up with the testing criteria for non-GMOs just this morning here in Iowa. Wonderful doctor by the name of John Fagan, who's a really good friend of Children's Health Defense. We came out to his lab because he's doing some work for us. Um, so if you have mRNA technology, even an edible vaccine, that people will tell you, oh, it's perfectly safe. It's just going to be, the mRNA will be destroyed in your gut. No, it's modified messenger RNA. It's rock solid. It will not, it will survive the digestive system, and it can lead to low level gene transfer of whatever that transgene is, whether it's spike protein or something else or influenza. Toxin, something of that nature, it can transfer into your gut bacteria, and it can transfer into your gut endothelium and end up transforming you. So, yeah, we don't want GMOs in our food. We don't want RNA technology in our injectables, in our ingestibles, period, end of sentence.
Thank you.
Right now, are they able to do it legally right now? Because I'm hearing rumors everywhere. I'm reading certain things, and some people are saying they are currently giving mRNA vaccines for the bird flu to birds. Is that true? And what's
Yes, it is. They are giving mRNA vaccines to chickens, and it's really very, very difficult because, number one, the technology does not prevent the bird flu in birds. So they're going to end up having to cull these chicken coops, these herds of fowl that are infected, and it could be something as simple as like a chlorine dioxide rinse that would save these birds. You do not get infected by eating infected meat. You cannot get bird flu by eating infected meat. By cooking the meat, then you kill off the virus, the influenza virus. You do not get bird flu by eating infected eggs. Again, you're cooking. I don't recommend that people eat raw eggs. Um, but yes, certainly this technology has been introduced to poultry. It has been, to a limited basis, introduced to cattle. And the next thing that is on the heels of that is the self-amplifying mRNA technology, and that will spread from person to person, from animal to animal.
How do we stop these bastards? I mean, they just won't stop. Like, what do we do? How do we stop these people?
People that do gain of function research just need to go to jail. I mean,
Yeah.
you see the individuals that have been doing gain of function research historically, and the lab leaks, and the potential pandemics that they've been flirting with for years. There's a researcher at University of Wisconsin. His name is Yukihiro Kawaoki. Uh, yeah, Kawaoka, excuse me. And he has been weaponizing bird flu since 2011. And so what he does is he passages it through ferrets, through prairie dogs, to aerosolize the virus. So, because right now it can be passed from an aerosol particles to from birds to birds, and then from birds to cows. But if they can get it from cows to cows, or from especially small animals like ferrets to ferrets, then the next step is to be able to come up with these surrogate animals that have human lung endothelium, and then they could transmit it from humans to humans. And that's exactly where Kawaoka wants to go. He's had lab leaks. He's had 7 different NIH reportable lab incidences. At one point, one of his graduate students got sick with the bird flu. They ended up quarantining him at home. He lived in an apartment complex. So, it's no wonder that it probably spread into the population. But the more virulent these things become, then we can have the COVID pandemic part 2.
I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on for a second and talk about population control, because you have Bill Gates admittingly in a TED talk talking about doing a good job with vaccines to reduce the population. Yeah, I saw a video a week ago of a lady who was a healthcare worker saying that she's seeing babies dying every day, um, at birth, because of people being vaccinated for the COVID vaccine. We talk about miscarriages going up. the sterilization of males and females when it comes to the vaccines. How much of this is tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and how much of this is based on science?
As bad as the government is, as bad as the Economic Forum, purports to be, it's 100 times worse. And so, to me, there is no tinfoil hats anymore. Anybody, all my friends are now the conspiracy theorists because I feel like they're prophetic. They're the ones that are going to tell me what's going to happen in the future. Because every conspiracy theory, it seems like, that comes down the pike turns out to be true. So, I think that we need to be very, very careful. Yeah, miscarriage rates are through the roof, absolutely through the roof, and we're hearing that on the ground from the hospitals. Stillbirths, spontaneous abortions, which are before 20 weeks gestation, stillbirths, which are after 20 weeks gestation, are definitely on the rise. Turbo cancers are on the rise, and then a precipitous drop in fertility. And the fact is that Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, the elite cabal, they don't want us to be alive. They really want the world population to be more like 800 million. So that means that 9 out of 10 people have to die in order to achieve that number. So if you think that this is for your good and is for your safety and for your benefit, think again. Because the people that are purporting these technologies, the elite, that are living in, prestigious penthouse apartments somewhere in Central Park West, they don't necessarily want us around.
Yeah, and people, they said, do you really think that the government would do something like that? Like the way people talk in defense of this like, our conspiracy theories is mind boggling, because throughout history there have been plenty of governments that are corrupt. So to think that the government isn't corrupt now is just ignorant.
And
Right,
people
right. I mean,
think
you look at all of these different operations, all of these different, cases of friendly fire, things that they've done to U.S. servicemen voluntarily, knowing that they were being used, taking these individuals and using them as human guinea pigs. I mean, it's enough to make you run away screaming, and that's what they've been doing to the population for years and years and years and years. We have a cataclysm. We have an aging of the United States, and there's not enough money to be able to take care of all the developmentally disabled, of all of the aged population. And so, what the quick fix is and the quick solution is just get rid of grandma. You don't have to pay for grandma's medical bills if she's dead, if she's not around. You don't have to pay for the developmentally disabled's medical bills if they're not around. And so you end up doing the math. You end up finding out things like Plum Island and Lyme disease, or Fort Detrick, and the weaponization of influenza, the weaponization of coronavirus, the weaponization of so many things carried over since the since World War II, with Operation Paperclip. You can see that the government has very, very little to do with the well-being of the people of the United States. We have to do it ourselves. If change is going to happen, we have to be the change. And thank God we've got Secretary Kennedy in the position that he is in now, because he's somebody who does want to end the chronic disease epidemic. He is somebody that wants to see the life expectancy of the United States to be higher and higher and higher and more competitive on the world stage. This is somebody that wants to protect children.
Yeah, we have enough evidence right now to tell them the jig is up. Especially just for COVID, right? The COVID vaccine.
Right.
We know it caused damage. We know it caused deaths. We have the science. We have the information. Why are they getting away with this? Like, what is it going to take? Because I like that Kennedy's there, but like, is it going to be enough? Are we going to be able to take them down now? Like, before they do more damage. Like, I'm just growing impatient with this.
Well, I want to see jail time for the perpetrators. I mean, and I'm not vindictive at all. I just want to make sure that people, anybody that has it in the back of their head, that they're going to get the rich on the sickness of others, that they think again, that that they see us rolling out the orange jumpsuits for the individuals that perpetrated COVID on top of us, that perpetrated the autism epidemic on children like my son, that justice is brought to those individuals, and then that the government clean up its damn mess. I mean, there is a huge amount of people who have been completely jacked up by the COVID shot. We don't want to call it a vaccine. It's an mRNA, modified messenger RNA technology. It is not a vaccine. Um, and then there are plenty of children that need to be compensated and need to be taken care of for the rest of their lives because they have become autistic because of vaccines and the double threat of a vaccine followed by Tylenol use.
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing, and I'll pass the mic. We're not extremists, right? They paint us that we're being extremists,
Right.
but all we're asking for is the right to choose. That's all we want. If you give me the right to choose, I'll go back to whistling. I'll go and hike and camp all night. I won't bother you guys. But the more you guys do this and push this down our throats, the more of a beast I'm going to become. And I will never stop, and none of us will stop. Just give us the right to choose, and we'll bleep off. You know what I mean? We'll ride off into the sunset. Leave us alone. The extremists are actually the people who want to shove this stuff down our throats, inject every man, woman, and child. These are the extremists, and they need to
Right.
stop because they're going to lose it all. Their greed is what's going to make them lose it all. So you guys listening out there, we know you guys watch everything we do. Uh, you tyrants out there, you greedy pharma people, just fuck off. Leave us alone, and you'll make your money, but you're not going to get all of us. Just leave us
Right.
alone because we're the beasts. You don't want to be poking the beast.
Don't poke the sleeping bear. Just leave us alone.
All we want is our ability to choose. You always hear, oh, RFK Jr. wants to take away our vaccines. Well, if that was so, they'd be gone by now. Okay, that he's had enough lead time. There's enough preponderance of evidence. There's enough smoking guns really to take them all off the market. He could have done that by now, but no, he's giving us the freedom to choose. When you look at things like the COVID shot for children, it now on the CDC's website on the infant child vaccination schedule, it says joint decision making. Joint decision making means that it's none of the government's business. It's between the parent and the practitioner what happens and what is best for that child. You take away the financial incentives for the pediatricians, then it becomes even more so. And so, if I don't, if you want to stick cauliflower in your veins, it's not my job to choose. But, I want to be able to have the choice to raise my children and for others to be able to raise their children in a vaccine free environment.
Just make me a dictator for 1 month. I'll clean house, man. I'll lock up everybody we need to lock up, and I'll
Oh,
make
if we
I'll,
could,
I'll
Kozi,
make
we
the
would.
world a better place. And I promise I'll do a great job.
Dr.
But back
Brian,
to your fantasy, Cozy. I don't think you'd
I
need a
know
month. I think you'd get it all done in a week. But
what
all
is
right.
tr- what I want to say, 'cause we don't want to, take too much of your time, but as we start winding down this conversation, uh, what are some things that might be coming up that you might be working on, or children's health defense that you could give us a little clue, or things that maybe we the people should sort of be paying attention to? Two-part question. And lastly, anything with free speech also on the agenda, because as we advocate for all of the harms, not being able to have platforms where we can actually communicate effectively is also harming the movement.
Exactly. We need free speech, and during the past administration, we had things like the Disinformation Dozen and the Center for Countering Digital Hate. That was basically, an arm of the Biden administration in order to make all of us evil anti-vaccinators to behave, to mind our P's and Q's and not to express our opinions. And so the Disinformation Dozen has filed suit. Uh, you know, we have um, uh, we have Missouri v. Biden. We have Kennedy v. Biden, and so those lawsuits are going forward. They are going to continue to go forward. Children's Health Defense continues to press the flesh when it comes to the free speech and free speech rights, and I want to see, the individuals held that are skirting by saying, "Oh, we're just doing what the government told us to do." Well, and it's free enterprise. First of all, the government had no business telling you what to do, and second of all, you had no business listening to them. Okay, in a free enterprise system, if they're saying to censor some individual, I liken it to your best friend telling you to jump off the cliff. It was illegal. You chose to do it. You are in the wrong. Even if the government told you, if they were the entity to tell you to break the law, you still broke the law. And so that, I'm very, very encouraged that those individuals will be held to account. And that the we need to insist that if they ever try this again, that we stand on our First Amendment rights. We stand on our right for free assembly, for freedom of speech, for freedom of religion, and we continue to drill home that Bill of Rights. The other thing is that there's lots of stuff coming down the pike. We're looking more and more into the genesis of these turbo cancers, not only so we can identify that, yes, indeed they are linked to the COVID shot, but also that we can figure out ways to unwind the damage. Okay. And so Children's Health Defense Science is focused on that and very much focused on doing analysis of solid tumors to see not only is the code for the spike protein in there, is the genetic code for SV40 in there, is it actively expressing, and has it integrated into the human genome? I mean, there's some instances where you see people that have been producing spike for 2-3 years since they got the jab. I would say in those instances, you would be hard pressed to not say that it is somehow integrated into their genome. They're just spike protein production factories. Now we have to face the facts of how do we get it out. Um, the other things that we're looking at is that we're looking at the preponderance of SIDS cases and the vaccination schedule. We're getting ready to publish a paper on the 2-month set of vaccines. Children at 2 months can get upwards to 6 different needle jabs for the DTaP vaccine, for the rotavirus vaccine, for the pneumococcal vaccine, for the Haemophilus influenza B vaccine, for the hepatitis B vaccine. So you're getting all of those shots at 2 months, and we see a definitive increase in the SIDS deaths right after the 2-month shots. It's as plain as the nose on your face. It's highly predictable. But we looked at a cohort of children that did get those vaccines in various combinations versus a cohort of children that didn't get any of those vaccines. And the rates of SIDS in the vaccinated children are astronomically higher. So we want to get that information out because babies don't just die. There is no such thing as SIDS. Just like there is no such thing as SADS, sudden adult, death syndrome. It just does not happen. You have to have a prime mover, and I think in so many of those cases, the prime movers are vaccinations. And then we're continuing to study the health of the unvaccinated. When I get down in the doldrums and I'm having a rough day, all I do is look at the health records of the unvaccinated and I get happy because that's the direction we want the country to head. We want healthy children. We want happy children. We want children that get less ear infections, respiratory infections, gastrointestinal infections, strep infections. And that's what we see in the unvaccinated.
You just reminded me of when you said SIDS. I remember a few years back. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the case of Nick Catone.
Yes, nicotine.
I remember like he used to post a lot about his son, every day, and it was just
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And that's when I first learned about SIDS through his stories. Right, he was an MMA fighter, mixed martial
Hmm.
artist, and his poor son died in his sleep, and he knew the truth. He uncovered the truth, and he just kept posting about it and posting about it. It's very heartbreaking stuff to hear.
It really is. And little Nicholas is in heaven, and we have to honor his legacy. We have to make sure that his death is not in vain. Nick and Marjorie Catone have been such wonderful supporters of our community. They fought hard for the mandates to stay in New Jersey, because they came just like New York, Maine, Connecticut, and California. They came for New Jersey, to the point that people at the New Jersey State House were pounding their fists on the exterior walls, while the New Jersey Senate was voting, on these mandates, and they preserved medical freedom in New Jersey, of all places. And so it can be done. But yeah, little Nicholas Catone, he is. We need to honor his spirit. We need to honor, his legacy, and make sure that we prevent this from happening again.
Absolutely, and thank you, man. I want to just keep saying thank you to you because you inspire a lot of people, and your courage and your wisdom and your all that knowledge that you have is being heard around the world. So you are making a huge change, and we really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. It's always just a delight to join you guys. You're on the front lines in New York. I mean, who knows what they're going to pull next? But with you guys on the front lines, I think the people that follow you, the people that are following medical freedom, they're in very, very good hands.
Yeah, let them try to pull some bleep. We'll be on
Yep,
it, so don't you worry.
exactly, exactly. Well, thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you.
Mark, do you want to say anything?
Kozi censored himself there with a bleep. Since when?
He bleeped himself
Since
out.
when are you bleeping yourself? You holding back now all of a sudden? But yeah, it's the science that's paid for by big pharma is not real science. The real science is from the frontline medical guys like Dr. Hooker, Dr. Peter McCullough. The list goes on,
Right.
especially the ones that sacrifice their careers to put the truth out there. That's one of the stories with the healthcare worker that's talking about the sudden infant death syndrome at her workplace. She's asking other nurses, can we go and be public about this? This baby's dying every day, and they don't want to do it because they're afraid to lose their job. So that's the unfortunate reality. That's why a lot of people took the shot in the first place instead of standing united. You have to say no together to fight tyranny. It can't just be the small percentage of freedom fighters out there that said no and ended up being fired. We needed everyone to stick together, and it might happen again. It probably will, and hopefully people learn their lesson the first time. They sacrificed their health in many cases by taking the mRNA shot, and who knows the long term side effects if they're not experiencing anything now. I've seen a lot of people who took the shot getting cancer nowadays, so I didn't want to point out to them, hey, maybe that has something to do with you taking the shot a few years ago. I'm not going to say that to them, but that's the reality of the situation. Is there's nothing worth sacrificing your health, and we need to stay united in order to fight tyranny. So that would be my final thought.
Thank you very much. Cozy, do you have a wrap out statement before we close?
No, I just want to say thank you all for tuning in, and keep spreading the message, people. Take shows like this and broadcast it everywhere. Show your friends and family. Whenever you hear news, whenever you hear of a vaccine injury, send it to your friends, send it to your family. Don't be scared to do so. We are changing the world one story at a time. And that's where change is going to happen, because eventually these injuries and these deaths are going to arrive in your doorstep. Unfortunately, those people who are mocking us right now, who are in disbelief or just think we're crazy, one day you're going to know somebody who is vaccine injured, and hopefully that's when you will wake up. Hopefully you'll wake up before that, though. So pray for these people, and just keep spreading the word, and we're going to win this battle.
Well, thank you, Dr. Brian Hooker. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add before we close, but I think that it's so timely that we had you back on the show on the week of Thanksgiving, because you are one of the living legends that we get to share a little bit of time with. So we have so much gratitude for you, for the legacy, for your sacrifice, for your vision, and for being a man of faith. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you do and continue to do.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be a part of your show. You guys are so genuine, and you care so much about people. Everybody should have friends like these, because they care enough to tell you the truth.
Thank you. And I just want to say a little shout out to everyone who's listening and who's been commenting. You guys are also a part of this endeavor. Each and every one of you, your likes, your shares, it matters. And I see some of you are lions that have been with us in the front lines. Deep bow and gratitude to you. And I don't want to close this show out without mentioning all the people who have been vaccine injured and all of the people who we've lost. Your sacrifice, your death will not be in vain, because people like us will continue for as long as we're able to share and this information until humanity is at a point to waking up and make different and more empowering decisions. We love you guys. Stay safe out there. Dr. Brian, you have an open invitation to the show. Thank you again for your presence.
All right. Thank you.
All right, mi gente, this is Rosangel Perez with Kozi, Mark, and that was Dr. Brian Hooker. See you next week. We are here every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The three of us with special guests. See you next week.
Cozy's
Bye.
Pure Soaps, get them.
Oh, yeah. Espérate. Don't forget this show. Let me just
Yeah,
show you. This show was sponsored by Kozi's Pure Soaps. To order soaps, visit at Kozi's Pure Soaps on IG.
that's right. And I have a new commercial out, new animation. Go check it out. Go to Cozy's Pure Soaps. Click on the video and check out the animation. And the best thing you can do to help me is share that video, and more people will discover it. So thank you so much.
All right. This is the crew signing off. We'll see you next week. Love you
Thank you all
guys.
for joining us.
Bye.